about to arrive. They have reached the Manipal campus and will be here in a very short span of time. Please be seated, all of you. Thank you so much. A very warm good morning to esteemed dignitaries, respected faculty members, our lovely guests, and my dear fellows. I am Shafali Parekh, and it gives me immense joy to welcome you all to the International Conference on Empowering Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Management, being held in collaboration with the World Forum of Women in Science Without Borders, and Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women. They say, a woman is the full circle, and within her is the power to create, nurture, and transform. To begin with our ceremony, let us invoke the blessings of the divine with the lamp lightning and the soulful Saraswati Vandana. So I request the dignitaries and a very special participant, Dr. Thamasa Samarsingla, University of Maratura, Sri Lanka, Dr. Rupa Muni Thakur, Dibgra University, Department of Life Sciences, to join us on the dais for lamp lightning. request the dignitaries to take their seats on the dais. To extend a warm welcome on behalf of Manipal University Jaipur, I would like to invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. N. Sharma, to felicitate and formally welcome our chief guest, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Padam Shri Awardee, President, Indian National Science Academy, and former Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. I now request Professor Kuldeep Singh Sangwan, Dean, Faculty of Science, Technology and Architecture, to formally welcome our guest of honor, Professor Angela Liberator, Science Diplomacy Fellow at the European University Institute, former head of the Scientific Department at the European Research Council. I again request Professor Kuldeep Singh Sangwan to formally welcome Professor Mary Chen, President, Chair Professor of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology Department, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. Before we move ahead, I would like to thank our external partners, Professor Amal Amin from National Research Center, Egypt, and founding chair of WISWP, WFWS, SHGS. Second, Nerina Fenato, founder and director of Traces and Dreams Sweden, co-founder and managing director of SHGS Italy, who though could not join us in person, but have conveyed their warm wishes for all of us. And I feel honored to share a message of goodwill that we received from external partner, Professor Amal Amin. Allow me to read it for you. Greetings. It is my great pleasure as the founding chair of Women in Science Without Borders Initiative, WISWB, to welcome you all. The current version of the World Forum of Women in Science India 2025 is the 9th edition of the regular meeting of WISWB, the dream which becomes true to find global inclusive scientific initiative adopting the theme of science for sustainable development. As sustainable development goals are the global human needs, including gender equality, SDG 5, which I prefer to call for gender equity, where justice and equitable cooperation may lead to sustainable future. WISWB was founded years ago as gender inclusive and transdisciplinary movement, gathering scientists with all stakeholders from all walk of life, including policymakers, industry, public, youth, and others to work and discuss together, taking science as a common language for the sake of sustainable development and humanity worldwide. Now, WISWB is distributed over 92 countries and is recognized by UNESCO and registered on the website of 2025 on the International Day for Women in Science in February as Gender Inclusive Global Successive Initiative. Women in Science Without Borders Initiative, WISWB, was founded in 2017 in Egypt as a global initiative to connect people and the world with sciences across all the borders for the sake of humanity. World Forum for the Women in Science was held twice in Egypt, once in Brazil, South Africa, Kenya, Italy, and we had a special event held in Duhok in Iraq, which was dedicated to refugee and at-risk scholars and scientists. Via WISWB, we confirm the role of science, scientific international relations, science diplomacy in solving the critical problems with common and global concern. WISWB activities from the beginning were supported by the big international organization, industry, and stakeholders as the International Science Council. ISC, United Nations Bodies, UN, the World Academy of Sciences, UNESCO, and the Inter-Academy Partnership, IAP, the Global Young Academy, GYA, National Science Academies and the media, non-governmental organization and others. For our current event in India, the great country, I would like to thank, recognize and acknowledge the efforts of Manipal University Jaipur, Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women and the organizers, especially Professor Dr. Ashima Bagaria and her team, who I would like to thank for organizing such a great event, opening the door for fruitful future collaborations. I would also like to thank guests, participants and the audience. That dream would not have happened without the support of all the friends and collaborators. The interesting theme of the current forum is empowering women in science, technology, engineering, arts and management, gathering diverse group of scientists and other stakeholders in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, STEM. Finally, I repeat my favorite previous statement as we as scientists are responsible more than before for the continuation and development of humanity, where the challenges are huge and serious and we should face them bravely and effectively together, where I may repeat the say of Stephen Hawking, the great scientist, that scientists have become the bearer of the torch of discovery in our quest of knowledge. At the end, I would like to thank my family, friends, colleagues who always support me, and thank you all. So this was the beautiful message from Professor Amal Amin. Thank you. The future belongs to those who believes in the beauty of their dreams. To move forward and make our dreams turn into reality, I would like to call Professor Ashima Bagaria, Associate Dean, School of Physical and Biological Sciences, to present the conference insights.
Thank you, Shafali. Esteemed Chief Guest, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Padma Shri Awardee. Guest of Honor, Professor Angela Lebertor and Professor Mary Chen. President, Manipal University Jaipur, Professor N.N. Sharma. Dean, Faculty of Science, Technology and Architecture, Professor Kuldeep Singh Sangwan. Provost, Deans, Associate Deans, Directors, invited speakers, delegates, participants, colleagues, and dear students. Namaskar and a very good morning. It is my privilege and honor to welcome you all at the International Conference on Empowering Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Management, in collaboration with the World Forum for Women in Science, WFWS, and Women in Science Without Borders, and Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University of Women. This conference is more than an academic congregation. It is a celebration of resilience, intellect, and innovation that women across disciplines bring to the global knowledge system. The theme reflects our collective commitment to fostering diversity, inclusion, and leadership in every sphere of education, research, and professional practice. As we stand at the crossroads of technology and transformation, it becomes imperative to ensure that the voices, ideas, and leadership of women are not just heard, but are central to shaping solutions for a sustainable and equitable future. Manipal University Jaipur has always believed in nurturing this ecosystem, where women are not only participants in science and innovation, but pioneers in decision makers and mentors driving the change. Through this conference, we aim to create meaningful dialogues, mentorship, opportunities, and networks that transcend boundaries and disciplines. We are deeply honored to have our external partners with us. Thank you, Amal and Narina, for collaborating with us. The World Forum for Women in Science provides a global platform that unites women, researchers, and innovators to collaborate, exchange knowledge, and inspire excellence. Women in Science Without Borders stands as a remarkable international movement that transcends geography, culture, and discipline, promoting inclusivity, global cooperation, and gender balance in science and other major streams. Their association lends a truly international dimension to this event and resonates with our vision of a world where science knows no boundaries and talent knows no gender. Over the next 2 days, we will engage with thought-provoking sessions, keynote lectures, and panel discussions that highlight pathways for women's empowerment in academia, industry, and governance. I'm confident that these deliberations will lead to new collaborations, new ideas, and renewed commitments towards gender parity in STEM and beyond. The conference has 7 tracks, and I'm delighted to share that we received 180 abstracts for the same from researchers, professionals, and students representing 14 countries, including UK, USA, Sri Lanka, Hungary, Senegal, Nigeria, Egypt, and Kenya, to name a few. After a thorough and meticulous review process, 104 abstracts were finally selected for presentation, reflecting the high quality and diversity of submissions we received. The accepted submissions will be considered for publication in Scopus Index journals following the respective journals' peer review policy. Such overwhelming participation is a testimony to the relevance of this theme and the growing commitment of the global academic community to promote diversity, leadership, and inclusion in education, research, and policy. The conference is externally funded by Indian National Science Academy, INSA, the American Chemical Society, ACS, and the Institute of Physics, IOP Publishing, who have sponsored the Best Poster and Best Oral Presentations Award to be given in the coming 2 days. Let this conference serve as a reminder that empowering women is not a single initiative. It is a sustained movement towards inclusive excellence. Together, let us build a future where every women scientist, engineer, artist, and leader finds her rightful place at the forefront of progress. Empowerment is not just a word, it's a movement that transforms the society. By supporting, mentoring, and collaborating with women globally, we do not just change individual lives, we change the trajectory of innovation, education, and progress for everyone. So, as we move forward in this conference, let us reflect on some critical questions. How can we design systems that actively support gender inclusivity across disciplines? How can we ensure that mentorship, leadership, and opportunities are accessible to all, regardless of gender identity? How can we foster a culture of collaboration where diverse perspectives are not only heard, but integrated into research, management, and innovation? Thank you, and welcome once again. I wish this conference a great success.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for beautifully setting the context of this gathering and enlightening us about the keynotes of this conference. Also, for sharing the overwhelming response in terms of registrations and abstract received. Without further ado, I would like to announce the unveiling of the conference abstract booklet. For that, I would like to request our chief guests and dignitaries on the dais to kindly release the booklets for all of us. Thank you so much. Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. To continue the momentum, I would like to request Professor Kuldeep Singh Sangwan, Dean, Faculty of Science, Technology and Architecture, to address the gatherings with his words of wisdom. Please, sir.
A very good morning to all. Sarde Professor Asutosh Sharma, Chief Guest, Professor Anand Sharma, President MUJ, Professor Angela Libret, and Professor Mary B. Chan Park, the other distinguished researchers, and dear colleagues and students. A very good morning. It's my proud privilege to welcome you all to this international conference on empowering women in science, technology, engineering, arts, and management. So we have heard of STEM, but this is STEAM. I hope the participants have a lot of steam to let the engine move and accelerate today and tomorrow. So coming back to the topic, this is a gathering that celebrates excellence, equity, and diversity. So in Indian context, it used to be said that if you educate a person, a boy, you educate him. If you educate a girl, you educate a family. So taking it forward, maybe if we empower a girl, we empower a full family. I hope today and tomorrow you will deliberate on these things, how to empower the women. So there are people from different or across the globe here who are researchers, educators, leaders with a vision to advance women participation, not only in STEAM but also in the leadership role. When it comes to the women, it's the story of progress. How we have progressed well is about how the women has advanced in the society. Whether there is no lack of talent in women, it's the institutional or societal or cultural barriers which inhibit their growth to the leadership roles. You take the Madam Marie Curie, you talk about the latest one, Dr. Gagandeep Kong, you talk about the Indian entrepreneur Kiran Majumdar Shah, and the latest, the founder of Mamaearth, Gajal Alga, if I pronounce her correctly. And we should not forget, irrespective of our political linkages, our own Vasundhara Raje Scindia. She broke all cultural, societal taboos in India, particularly in the northern India, to progress to the top to lead Rajasthan. She is one of the role models for the women empowerment through self, not by others. So this is maybe the women, they have to fight themselves to get what they deserve. However, there are remarkable talent and achievements, but the women are still underrepresented in the leadership roles, not only in India, Asia, but across the world, I would say. The exception may be the Scandinavian countries. And this is due to, again, because of the taboos of the societal taboos, cultural taboos, or the institutional barriers. So as educators and leaders, it's our collective responsibility to develop a collective ecosystem that encourages participation, ensure equality, and empower the potential of women through our actions, through our mentorship programs, through our inclusive policies, and to develop flexible career pathways and recognition systems for women. Let every girl with curiosity in her eyes and determination in her heart gets sport, mentorship, and opportunity to excel in the life. And the last, I extend my heartful thanks to the organizers, to the World Forum for Women in Science, to Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women, and School of Physical Sciences and Biosciences for making this event possible, and I wish that such events should also be happening in future. The empowerment of women should not be a target, it should be a process which must continue forever. In the end, I again welcome you all to this celebration of empowerment, excellence, and equity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for those encouraging words. As it is rightly said, a great leader is not the one who creates followers, but the one who creates more leaders. And now it is my privilege to invite on stage a visionary leader, Professor N. Sharma, President, Manipal University Jaipur, whose constant guidance and dedications have been instrumental in shaping the growth and excellence of this institution. Please, sir.
Very good morning. Good morning. Why do I have to repeat 2 times every time? So, Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Ashutosh Sharma, President INSA, Professor Angela, Guest of Honor, Science Diplomacy Fellow, European University Institute, Professor Mary Chan, President Chair, Professor in Chemistry, NTU Singapore, dignitaries, distinguished speakers from across the globe, esteemed colleagues, researchers, students, and most importantly, the inspiring women leaders who are the heart of this conference. A very warm welcome. This kind of conference, I think it is the first of its kind in Manipal University Jaipur, if I am not incorrect. Empowering women and giving them the steam, because they have added an A in between, because we all knew STEM. And it is with great pride and joy that I welcome you all to this international conference on empowering women in science, technology, engineering, management, and humanities. This gathering is more than an academic forum. It is a collective commitment to recognize, celebrate, and accelerate women's leadership across disciplines that shape our societies, our economies, and our culture, for the benefit of participants from outside. And of course, a repetition to my own people here. Manipal is a town's name, is a town actually. What does Manipal mean? And most of our people will say that this guy speaks again and again of Manipal. But what is Manipal stands for is a place which is what? Manupalla. Manu means the mud, and the Palla means the lake. So it is a small town where there was a muddy lake, from where the people used to take the sand and make the brick. Is a coastal town, Western Ghats. The founder of Manipal, our revered Dr. T.M.A. Pai, Tonse Madhav Anant Pai, was a medical doctor and was supposed to go to Hong Kong after degree. His mother said, no, serve the community. And if you can talk of that community, it is a fisherman community. Illiterate, poor, and no guidance. And this doctor stayed back to develop that particular town, which is the most vibrant student town today, with 30 plus institutes. And the 30 plus institute, 10 of them are in top 10 of India. The Kasturba Medical College, which is at that place, is second in India on the QS ranking after AIMS Delhi. You can check it. So with a vision, 75 years old, 1953 they started, and this day the community has grown up. The Manipal experience has grown up, and to that effect, this campus was established by his illustrious son, Dr. Ramdas Pai. May he live long with good health. We recently celebrated the 90th birthday of his, and we still continue to celebrate that in this year. He started this college, this university in 2011, and in 15 years, 14 years of this small journey. See, 14 years in an educational institute is a very small time. Universities of 100 years old, 150 years old, I have seen 300 years old in USSR. I went to many places. So 14 years is too small a period wherein we have grown in almost every front, including the rankings. Today we are in THE rankings, today we are in QS rankings, today we are in top 50, we are the 58th ranked university in National Institute of Ranking Framework. Out of 1200 universities in India, we are 58th ranked in 14 years. Because the intentions are good, because our people are good, because our students are good. They are going abroad and in India and making mark. This is where we talk about women. In this conference, we celebrate their achievements. I am very happy to say that if you compare the data, in India, there is a standard of around 40 to 43% enrollment in STEM. And how many of them are employed in R&D or education is 16 to 19%. Though there are a lot of enrollment of females in education, higher education, but the employment is 16 to 19%. This I get from data from internet. It may be slightly, and current AI. I got it from the AI generation, the 16 to 19%. Sometime we should be very happy that this institute have 37% women faculty members. We are soon going to touch 40% of employment of the women faculty members. We have around 35% girl students studying in this university. It's simply 14 years, and parents feel very happy sending their wards here in this university. I wish that this kind of progress goes on, wherein we are publishing 60% of our 2000 publications, 60% in Q1 and Q2. We are bagging a lot of grants, and this year I think we have bagged already 6 crore grant from the national agencies. When we speak of empowering women, therefore, we must think beyond a single domain. We must create opportunities in laboratories and in boardrooms, and design studios and in research fields, in classrooms and in cultural forums. It is not one way. The voice of women must resonate equally in the science that transforms our material world and in the humanities that nurture our human spirit. I can tell you confidentially that most of our centers of excellence which are going to be built, 80% of them are women. History has given us remarkable women, from Gargi and Maitri in ancient India, to scientists like Marie Curie, to leaders like Indra Nooyi, and authors like Toni Morrison. Alongside these luminaries, countless women across disciplines have proven their mettle. This conference, I believe, will not only provide knowledge exchange, but also inspiration. It will bring together voices from multiple domains, spark new collaborations, and most importantly, send a clear message. I am really thankful to Professor Ashutosh giving us time again and again and blessing this institute. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Professor Angela. This is your first visit. I am sure you will come again and again. Okay. Can we give a big round of applause? Professor Mary, and to you, our students are going, sure that you will find better students now and take some of them for the internship. Thank you very much. Have a great 2 days ahead and a very fruitful conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for inspiring and thoughtful words and making us aware about the unknown facts about Manipal University. Each time a woman stands for herself, she stands up for all the women in the world. And with this thought, it is my privilege to invite our guest of honor, Professor Angela Liberator, Science Diplomacy Fellow at the European University Institute and former head of Scientific Department at the European Research Council. She is a remarkable example of leadership and dedication in science, bridging knowledge and policy at the global stage. With that spirit, may I humbly invite Professor Liberator to kindly share her words. Thank you.
Thank you. It's actually my first time in Jaipur, but my fourth time in India, a country I love and with whom and with which I think as a European and as an Italian, we share a lot. I felt very welcome actually to see Marie Curie quoted on the screen. You might know that the European Union has been developing a fellowship scheme for doctoral students and postdoctoral students. They can be in Europe, but they can also visit other countries, and people from other countries in the world can visit Europe. So this is a scheme which has been dedicated to her and which have been used by thousands of young researchers and students. So just to wake you up, because you have been sitting a lot, how many of you ever heard about the Marie Sklodowska-Curie fellowships? Well, yeah, some of you. Nice. So this is just to say that not only the intention of the fellowship, of course, and schemes is to honor a great woman scientist, but to have the legacy that was mentioned earlier, to provide seeds for the young generations, to attract them to science and to keep them possibly in science, but also to use science and the scientific approach in whatever they will do in their life, and to do that knowing that diversity in science, inclusivity in science, is part of the quality of science. You cannot exclude many brilliant people in your society and really have good quality science. So inclusivity is good. Not only it's necessary as a matter of fairness as a value, but it's also necessary for the quality of science and its integrity, and also for the relevance of science in addressing many of our societal needs, from health issues, energy issues, agriculture, water, climate change, migration, you name them. The first time I was in India was actually 17 years ago, when we collaborated on a conference on the commonalities and diversities of India and Europe to develop democracy and how to keep diversity as a richness rather than a problem only to be managed in our societies. Now, as I was presented, I have been for 10 years working at the European Research Council and managing its scientific department. How many of you ever heard of the European Research Council before it was mentioned this morning? Okay, well informed, thank you. So at the European Research Council, the idea is to support frontier research. Some people call it basic research, but we prefer frontier because you can break and push the frontiers of knowledge in any field, theoretical, applied, empirical, and less so. And we do that for all areas of science: physical sciences and engineering, life sciences, social sciences, and humanities. Now, at ERC, the focus is to push and support the frontier science in all the areas with focus on excellence, on quality. Of course, we learned very soon that in order to really go for excellence, as mentioned earlier, we needed to be more careful about inclusivity. We all know by now that there are biases in peer review, for example, that access to certain scientific careers is more difficult for women in some areas than others. So we have been, intentionally engaging with how do we get the message through for women to apply and to be, supported and self-confidence. And what we see is that when women apply, their success rate through a very tough evaluation system to which one of our guests participated, they actually have a very good success rate. So once they are in the game, they are as good as their colleagues in their field. So this is something to be careful about. Mindful of time, I will conclude by saying that it's a great pleasure to be with you, to thank the organizing team of Dr. Ashima, Professor Ashima and her team, and of course the Old University of Manipal. And I think it is a great occasion to be here with so many young researchers, as well as less young like myself, to push forward the reflection about how to develop a better system for excellent and inclusive research in all fields, how to develop collaboration across borders. Borders can be disciplinary borders, mental borders about what is or what is not, of interest, geopolitical borders. Therefore, of course, part of my life in the European Union has been to foster collaboration of Europe with other countries, and we met with Professor Sharma on the Science and Technology Agreement that has been there for decades now between the European Union and India. So this collaboration, this crossing of mind, this enabling diversity to allow us to have a better quality science, a more equitable science, and also more relevant science in whatever you do, it's a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward. I will address you later about science, diplomacy, and women empowerment, so I will not say anything about that topic for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Libretto, for valuable insights. The empowered woman can empower the whole world. And we have with us a live example as our guest of honor, Professor Mary B. Chen Park, President and Chair Professor of Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology at NTU. I would like to request Professor Mary Chen to kindly address the gathering and enlighten us with her thoughts. Please, ma'am.
Good morning, distinguished guests and hosts, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful place. I've been to India several times. This is my first time to Jaipur and also this university. I'm so impressed by the warm hospitality of my host and also by the energy of this audience. So it reminds me greatly of NTU Singapore. So I was born in Singapore, but I studied in US for several years. When I finally returned to Singapore because of my children, Singapore NTU was in 2001. That's when I returned from United States to Singapore. NTU was kind of we aspire, but it's not a rank university. So over the years, I've been with NTU and with the great management of Singapore and also our president, Batil Anderson. I don't know if some of you may know him. And also our wise leaders. NTU has gone up the ranking. So it has gone from aspiring to a highly ranked university. But of course, this university looks to me very much with lots of energy and with lots of aspiration. I'm very sure India, MU will make it like NTU. And also on a personal basis, I always have Indian postdocs, chemists. They are excellent, top quality, and I encourage you. You can look at my publication, lots of Indian postdocs. They are excellent. Few of them have gone to be professors here in NIT and other universities. And on top of that, this year or last year, I take my first PhD Indian female student. So she is excellent, outstanding. So I hope that you can also look forward and continue in your energy and momentum for science. I can see the energy of this community. With that, I hope you success for your aspiration and your ambition for your personal life. Thank you for your home hospitality.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for inspiring words. And now the moment we all have been eagerly waiting for, I take the honor to invite Professor Ashima Bagadia, Associate Dean, School of Physical and Biological Sciences, to introduce our chief guest, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Padam Shri Awardee, to the gathering. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Shefali. I think the name Professor Ashutosh Sharma needs no introduction. However, I cannot stop myself from doing so. So Professor Ashutosh Sharma, President of the Indian National Science Academy and Institute Chair Professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, is one of India's most distinguished scientists and academic leader. He served as Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India from 2015 to 21, where he played a pivotal role in shaping national policies and missions in areas such as clean energy, nanotechnology, cyber physical systems, and promoting women in science. And not to say, it will be demeaning if I don't mention that he was instrumental when the idea of this particular conference came up in my mind. And the word A goes to him because he says that I cannot leave humanities. Professor Sharma earned his BTech from IIT Kanpur, followed by master's degree from Pennsylvania State University and a PhD from the State University of New York at Buffalo. Over the course of his career, he has made pioneering contributions in nanoscience, soft matter, thin films, and interfacial engineering, publishing more than 350 research papers and patents, while mentoring a large number of students and researchers. His exemplary contributions have been recognized with some of the nation's highest awards, including the Padma Shri in 2025, the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, the Infosys Prize, and international distinctions such as the TWAS Prize and the UNESCO Medal for Nanoscience and Nanotechnology. A fellow of all major national science academies, INSA, IAS, INAE, and NAAC, as well as TWAS. Professor Sharma continues to advance Indian science and innovation, fostering global collaboration and inspiring excellence in research. It's a proud privilege to welcome Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Padma Shri Awardee, as the chief guest of this conference. And I now take this opportunity to ask him to kindly address this gathering with his insights. Please, sir.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here at Manipal University. Absolutely delighted. And then especially that the university is holding this very important conference, workshop. And in that workshop, we have some of the champions of science, excelling in science, and also championing the cause of women scientists in the country. So we have with us, of course, Professor Mary Chan Park. By the way, I see everybody on this panel here it's a small world. And so I'm related to all of them in many different ways. I have no family connection with Professor N.N. Sharma. I mean, not close family relation that I know of. But you know, in North India, if you throw a stone in a random direction, it will hit a Sharma. And so we are, you know, here, right? Two Sharmas right here. If it then hit a Sharma, it'll hit a Verma, one of these. So anyhow, Professor Mary Chan Park and we have been editors of the same journal for about 10 years, American Chemical Society's Applied Materials and Interfaces. I just learned that your term is going to get over. Mine was over last year, but we enjoyed this journey together. Professor Angela Liberton, she pointed out that when I was secretary of Department of Science and Technology, we had signed an agreement with the European Union for collaborative research. And so that I've known her since then, and before that, 17 years ago, and then I was a member of European Research Commission, and so on. So there and now she is a science diplomacy fellow, right? And I had introduced the concept of not just science diplomacy, but diplomacy for science. Now, this is something which is often ignored by the countries because science diplomacy is done by diplomats, but diplomacy for science has to be done by scientists. And so the reason is, how do you promote science through diplomacy so that it gets into the consciousness of society and saying how important science is. So it's basically promoting science by the different means. So I'm very glad that you have taken up science diplomacy, and this, you know, it's a great thing to do. Professor N.N. Sharma and also Professor Kuldeep Sangwan, they both come from BITS Pilani. BITS Pilani is my favorite place. In fact, I gave a convocation address there in 2015. Almost 70% of my high school class from Jaipur back in 77 went to BITS Pilani. Many of them very, very distinguished people globally, everywhere. So I'm very proud of BITS Pilani and this being a part of Rajasthan. And now I'm equally proud of Manipal University and being a part of Rajasthan. And what a great journey this university has done in merely 14 years, up to 900 faculty members, 19,000 students, A+ ranking. And then I learned that there is a great thrust on research. So there are going to be very many research professors and the centers of excellence, and all of that is what makes for a great university. I haven't any doubt at all that this have a great future. I mean, it has a great present. I'm not saying they have a great present. It has a great present. But it's going to have a very glorious future, which depends on the great leadership that this university has had, continues to have. So I wish you all the very best in doing that. Now, coming to, hey, how many people here are below 28 years of age? Oh, you see? So you see the average age of India is 28.63 years. This 0.63 I added myself. Okay, I don't really know whether this is true. Okay, 28 years more or less. All right. See, if people don't challenge your facts, then you can say whatever you want. Anyway, others don't know it either. So this is great. So we are a very young nation. We are a very young nation, and so together with being very young, if we empower totally our women scientists, if we had a level playing field, if you would, then it's going to do great things for the country, for the society, for economy. It's very clear that that is the case. And this is happening. But it has to happen very fast now. Why does it have to happen very fast? Why is it we cannot wait? Is because the demographic dividend that India has, this 28 years of median age, that window of opportunity would not be open forever. Another 35 years. And so like every other country, you would become gray, which means that the younger people here, all the people, proud younger people, 28 years old or less, they are going to be not that younger anymore. And then people like me are going to be even less young. and you would have to support a whole lot of us who are not working. So this demographic dividend is so important, and the window of opportunity, 35 years, is so important. I cannot emphasize that enough. At the same time, other constraints and challenges would come, which would limit growth, which would put constraints on our growth. And these are climate change, going to have a huge impact. Every time your temperature goes up half a degree Celsius, it basically means hugely devastating effect on economy, on agriculture, on health, on everything. So that's one. The second aspect is the rise of intelligent machines. So while you may think, hey, because I'm young, I got energy, I got a job. But the machine is younger, it's got more energy than you can imagine, and it can do stuff that a human brain cannot. Okay, even though it's a creative or cognitive task. I had learned from my good friend, Chris Gopalkrishnan, who was one of the founders of Infosys. They said all their bottom layer of jobs totally eliminated. Okay, 20,000 jobs gone in one shot. Okay, because of the rise of AI. So everything that people are doing, little coding, they're doing stuff is not needed, is going to be replaced by machine. So that's a challenge, and you have to be prepared for that challenge. All the younger people here, or the reason I call people younger is because there are no old people. There are young people and younger people. There are no old people. Okay, never make that mistake to think that there are old people in this world. There are none such. Why is diversity important? So diversity is of age and gender. There are other kind of diversities, which are geography, which is the language that we speak, the food that we eat, our socioeconomic background, our educational background. All of that is part of diversity. And so therefore has to be inclusion and equity, which takes into account this diversity. Diversity is the strength. Now, how do you prove that diversity is the strength? Because it looks like that diversity, people think that there is an optimal model, and diversity deviates from that. So therefore we think that diversity is counterproductive. So we think there is an optimal thing, and then diversity means it's not all the same, and we want something which is efficient and optimal. But that's a huge misunderstanding of diversity. Well, look at nature. If we had one optimal model, no matter how efficient it is, that model, when things change around us, would not be optimal, and it would not have the time to respond to non-optimality. Which means, for example, one new virus that comes and it kills me, will kill everybody else on the same day. So diversity basically means that this is a bulwark against any challenges, against any adversities, and it has diversity of perspectives. So you understand what the problems are by diversity of perspectives. You also provide different solutions to the same problem by diversity of perspectives. Oh, by the way, thinking about diversity, so I see every conference in India starts with Saraswati Vandana. Do you think that's enough diversity? Or would you like to see, is there something missing? Last 10 conferences that I've organized, or I had some veto, I said that we would do both Saraswati Vandana and Lakshmi Vandana at the same time. Now people start laughing, they think it's a joke. It's not a joke. The reason is, you ask any professor what they want, they will say money. but they are worshipping Saraswati. So I mean, it looks very strange. Okay, I mean, it looks like that we don't know what we are doing. So it's like this. You see, there is no fight between Saraswati and Lakshmi. Saraswati produces knowledge if she has money. Lakshmi produces knowledge if there is money. Saraswati produces knowledge with money, and Lakshmi produces money with knowledge. Okay, so both of these actually work together, and this is what we call invention and innovation. So invention, the goddess of invention is Saraswati, the goddess of innovation is Lakshmi. And so we must understand, the younger minds must understand that very clearly, that we have set up the wrong historical precedents in universities by only worshipping Saraswati and somehow believing that, okay, well, everything is good, it will be taken care of. But the fact is that we need money in order to produce knowledge, and which is a good thing. Okay, so now I'm saying, well, participation of women, why is so important? Now also, there are many different angles, of course, many different angles. There's a political angle, there's an economic angle, there is the fulfillment of the society angle. You see, even in US, it took 70 years of struggle, very hard struggle, to obtain voting rights for women, right? It took enormous amount of efforts to do that. So we don't live in that age anymore, but it's fairly clear that there is a long way to go. So despite the fact that 40% enrollment here may be women and so on, what happens? When you look at, of course, because of the nature of this conference, I see here women on the panel. But most of the conferences that you would go to, they are called manels. They are called manels because there are no women sitting there. So there's another thing. So whenever we have any kind of conference or committee or anything, or even selection for directors, I sit in a lot of those committees, or vice chancellors, you have to make sure that there is inclusion and there is equity, and that it is not diluting the standards. A lot of people think, are we doing like this? No, they are not doing it like that. It's just a question that there are inherent biases in the system, and so you have to recognize those biases and you have to very clearly work against it. So this is cultural and behavioral aspects, if you would, which we do not acknowledge. Have you ever been to a scientific conference where people talk about cultural behavioral aspect? No? Anybody raise their hand? Anybody told you that, okay, the success in science, it depends very little on your IQ. It depends very little on your training. It depends entirely on cultural behavioral aspect. And I give actually more and more, I don't give lectures on my own personal research. I have substantial personal research, but I see that this is not of as great a value to people as saying, look, it's the process of doing science which is important. It is not saying, I will follow something here. They say, Professor the Mary Park is doing great work, so I'll just follow her, which is a good thing. You can do that. But you should also have your own ideas and your own confidence and your stuff about what you're doing and the purpose of this all and the direction of this all and the relevance of this all, which nobody else is going to tell us. Okay, this is something which is very cultural and behavioral. Thinking of cultural and behavioral, I'll give you an example and you will know what I mean. So how many people here think, is it the journey or destination which is important? How many people for journey? See, we are all being conditioned. Okay, we think the right answer is journey. When we are all thinking about destination, it's just about Lakshmi and Saraswati, right? So while we are thinking Lakshmi, we are saying Saraswati. And is it the journey? Every time I ask this question, people say it's the journey. Why? Because we have been conditioned to say this because it looks good. If you say destination, then people would judge you adversely, right? But anyway, I have a twist on this. So I say it's not journey, it is not destination, it's the company which is important. Then people say, company is important. Until I explain to them, it is the company paying for the journey which is important, right? Not in this particular case, Manipal University. So I think it's very important we acknowledge their contribution and so on. So okay, I'll conclude this quickly, but I want to give a few examples of cultural behavioral aspect. You see, so do you use this nomenclature here, which is called Dr. Mrs., right? When I had gone to DST, I had banned that. I said, you cannot do that because you are not only announcing the gender, you're also announcing the marital status of that person, right? So if you want to do that, if you want to have equality, then for men you write doctor, bachelor, or doctor married, okay? Then we are even, right? But you cannot write doctor, Mrs. It's so absurd. It's totally absurd, okay? And I totally banned that by having an official order saying that you can, because the gender doesn't matter. If you are part of a committee, you are there because of your scientific background. You are not there because of your gender, okay? So this is an example of cultural behavioral aspect. Another day, nearly about 9 years ago, I was interacting with women entrepreneurs, women who have startups or want to have a startup in technology. So I was wanting to ask them about what are the problems, what holds them back. So one of them said, I remember still, they said LKK. So I said, what is LKK? They said, log kya kahenge? So I said, now that makes sense. This is just like this three-body problem is called pati, patni, or wo. Now, wo is the mother-in-law, of course, right? It's not what you're thinking. So anyways, these are all cultural behavioral aspects, and we recognize them every day. Once we recognize them every day, then we can take, the appropriate steps, appropriate resolution to that problem. By the way, in the government, when you have a senior IPS officer, IAS officer, a senior bureaucrat, some women in power, there are fewer. They are called sir. So if you don't know, sometimes they are called madam sir. Okay. So it was always very confusing to me. I said, why are you saying that? Because they think that it's only sir who has the power. Okay, madam cannot have power, right? So these are all cultural, behavioral aspects, and we must, in order to be successful, not just about diversity, equity, inclusion, but to be successful in doing good science, is the culture that matters, and I will talk more about it in my lecture in the afternoon. There are these inherent biases, stereotypes, and there's a glass ceiling. So while we have more PhD women doing PhD, if you look at how many directors of IITs are women, what do you think is the number? 23 IITs are there. The number is what was invented in India long time ago. Right? You know that number, right? Okay, so leadership positions are very important, and I will then, I've been asking you that I'll conclude what I'm saying, but now I will really conclude, and which is to give you my experience about as a president of Indian National Science Academy. Indian National Science Academy, like all academies around the world, whether it's a Royal Society or US Academy of Science or what have you, very few women fellows. So in the case of INSA, there are 7% women fellows. And so I said, look, this may be true good old days when the academies were considered to be old boys club or something like that. Right? We must democratize our science. We must have inclusion. We must reach out to larger number of people and institutions and not just be some elite people listening to each other. That's not the purpose of academy. So we created a separate vertical in the academy. They are called Women Associates of INSA. And so my aim is that next 5 years, we would have 350 women associates of INSA who would then drive their programs, provide role models, and have the kind of workshop we are having here today, but have it in every nook and corner of the country and drive that process very strongly. So in conclusion, that I would say that there is, we have responsibility to promote equity, inclusion, and diversity because of some very compelling reasons, not because of lip service. Very compelling reasons because of challenges which are hugely societal in nature, which are coming at us at faster and faster rate, in fact at exponential rate. And to deal with these challenges of climate change, for example, to deal with the challenges of rise of intelligent machines, that we would need whole participation of society as equal, or we would not be able to meet these challenges. I guarantee you that. So, so this is a great conference. Have a great day, and we got very good set of speakers lined up. Thanks to Ashima. I said I have something in common with everybody here. I forgot about Ashima. What do you think is common between Ashima and me? Huh? A, yeah. So my abbreviated name is Ashi. Is there some similarity, right? There? Okay. Anyway, very good, and thank you, Ashima, for holding this very great conference. Take care.
Thank you so much, sir, for such thought-provoking and motivational words. Truly, your insights have added a new dimension to this conference. As we approach to the conclusion of this inaugural session, I want to add a thought for our dignitaries, which is like a lamp consume itself and lighten the surroundings. Our dignitaries have enlightened us likewise. So I would like to call Professor Veena Dayal to deliver a vote of thanks to our dignitaries and participants. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I, Professor Veena Dayal, convener of the conference, feel deeply honored and privileged to have this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks at the inaugural session of our International Conference on Empowering Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Management. On behalf of the organizing committee, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to our honorable chief guest, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Padma Shri awardee and President, Indian National Science Academy, for gracing this occasion with his presence. Sir, your inspiring words has truly set the tone for the conference and will continue to motivate us in our academic and research pursuits. We are also profoundly thankful to our guests of honor, Professor Mary Chen Park, President, Chair Professor of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and Professor Angela, Science Diplomacy Fellow, European University Institute, and former head, Scientific Department, European Research Council. Your words of encouragement and international perspective have greatly enriched this inaugural session. A special word of appreciation to our university leadership, our President, Professor Anand Sharma, and Pro-President, Professor Karunagar A. Kotegar, for their visionary guidance and continuous support. Our sincere thanks also go to Registrar, Professor Amit Soni, and Provost, Professor Neetu Bhatnagar, for their encouragement at every step of organizing this event. I express my deep gratitude to our Dean, Faculty of Science, Technology and Architecture, Professor Kuldeep Singh Sangwan, for his leadership and constant motivation. And to Professor Ashima Bagadia, Associate Dean, School of Physical and Biological Sciences, who conceptualized the idea of this conference and guided us at every step. Her constant support and encouragement have been a true source of inspiration. Thank you, ma'am. My heartfelt thanks to my fellow conveners, Dr. Monica Saini and Professor Neha Chaudhary, for their dedication, teamwork, and tireless efforts in coordinating every aspect of this conference. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge the contribution of all faculty members, staff, and student volunteers who worked with great commitment, from academic coordination and logistics to hospitality and technological support. Your collective efforts have made this inaugural event a grand success. I would also like to extend our sincere thanks to our external organizers, Professor Amal Amin, National Research Center, Egypt, and founding chair of World Forum for Women in Science, and Science for Humanities Global Society. Nerina Finetto, founder and director of Traces and Dreams, Italy, and co-founder of Science for Humanities Global Society. And Professor Arun Sharma, Dean Academic Affairs, Indira Gandhi, Delhi Technological University for Women, for their valuable support, collaboration, and contribution to the success of this conference. We also express our heartfelt appreciation to our sponsors, the American Chemical Society, IOP Publishing, Indian National Science Academy, for their generous support and partnership. Finally, I thank all our distinguished delegates, speakers, and participants for joining us today and for being part of this global dialogue on women's empowerment through science and innovation. Once again, on behalf of the organizing team, I extend my sincere appreciation to each one of you for your presence and support. Thank you all, and let us look forward to 2 inspiring days of learning, collaboration, and empowerment through this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. May I now request you all to rise from your seats for the national anthem, followed by a group photograph. Thank you.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you all. Thank you so much. You were invited for the high tea and networking at the ground floor old food court, and I request you all to assemble back here at Shardabai University for the following. Before that, we are here for a group photograph, please. I request you all to please wait for group photograph.
Professor Ashutosh Sharma for his plenary talk. And without wasting any time further, I give this platform to Professor Sharma for his talk, and I'm sure everybody is waiting for the same. Over to you, sir.
Okay, so this talk very quickly is not about some particular area of research, but it's more about understanding what makes science and technology work. So finally, having done some science and technology, then you say, does it work or does it not? So what is the meaning of science work? Is translation. So first of all, its relevance, its direction, its quality, and then its connect with society and its impact on society and economy. So if we define our sense of working of science in terms of its quality, of course its quantity, but most importantly, whether it's working for our society. And so what are the factors that make it work or not is basically what I want to touch upon. And this is something that we don't do in scientific conferences, but this is the most critical factor in our success of what we do. So having taught innumerable generations of students and having interacted with few thousand, tens of thousands of scientists, this is basically what I learned existentially, is saying, look, why is it that our science sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work? And so we'll quickly also look at what is the future, its technological challenges. The technological challenges, of course, are related to AI, quantum, CRISPR, a whole lot of new exponential technologies which are coming up. But there are also future in its social, cultural challenges. For example, climate change, sustainable development, and so on. The point is that both of these challenges are closely related to each other. So these problems, for example, that of climate change, cannot be addressed only by scientific solutions. They have to be fully embedded in our society's will. And so I would come to that in a moment. What are the intersections and interactions between technology challenges and the society cultural challenges? Then we come to the point of what makes science and technology work and what kind of mind can actually navigate the challenges of the future. That is the roadmap of what I want to talk about in the next 40 minutes. So when we talk about future, we know the famous quote. It says, predictions are very hard, especially about the future. And future isn't what it used to be. And my favorite is, and this one is invented by me, is that tomorrow was another day. Okay. Tomorrow was another day simply means there is a continuity of my experiences. So how it was yesterday is the same as tomorrow. Tomorrow was just another day, isn't it? Okay, so it's about what are the challenges that we are talking about, the science and technology, rise of intelligent machines. I'm talking about the overarching challenges, which means it doesn't matter what kind of science I do. Basically, I will have to deal with one of this stuff at some point or other in my career, in my life, and by the society in which I live. So intelligent machines, sustainable development, closing the circle between invention and innovation, inclusion, diversity and equity, which is the topic of this conference. This is one of the overarching challenges, if you would, in making use of our science and technology. I'll very quickly touch upon the strengths and weaknesses of Indian science, and then what makes us science and technology work, and the characteristics of the mind that can deal with these challenges. So India is number 3 in number of scientific papers. This was up from number 9 just 10 years ago, which means that the growth in number of publications has been very fast. It's been growing at an average rate of about 15% as compared to the global average of about 4%. So, well, okay, so you're number 3, also number 3 and also in areas like engineering, nanomaterials, even AI. We also number 3 in terms of number of startups, not in terms of the value of those startups, but the number of startups is number 3. And this is again up from the 10 years ago. In 2015, there was the new government's policy about Startup India. 2015, so I joined the government at that time, and there were 70 registered startups in the country. Today there are in excess of 1.5 lakhs, 150,000 registered startups. So there have been an exponential growth. In fact, I wrote an article in 2016 in Times of India predicting that there would be over 100,000 startups in 10 years. Now my prediction now is that there would be more than 1 million startups in next 10 years. So it is growing very fast, and that it's not because the level of intelligence of people has changed. What has changed is basically what makes some of the enablers of science and technology. It's not because our education has changed. Our education still remains same old problem, cracking exams, and not about learning at all. So anyhow, in terms of strength, there is a good, R&D, there are good institutions, there are good scientists, good brains. Demography is in our favor. There are new enabling policies and support mechanisms, and hugely diversified market that India offers. What about the weaknesses? But there is lack of diversity. While quantity is good, the quality is lacking. Relevance and direction of research is not always clear. The reason for that is that the relevance and direction for research does not come from the lab. It comes from outside the lab. So if there is no connect with the outside world, then we do not know what direction to move in. So often researchers, they just look at, hey, what is fashionable, what is sexy, who's doing what. Oh, this great university there, ABC, is doing this, so I will also do it. Okay, so they absolutely no understanding of why somebody is doing it, because they no connect with the user, and that there is, so therefore there is no relevance and direction to that research. Of course, one reason could be that we want to write papers and publish them, which is okay. I guess it factors in the rankings, so I have nothing against it. I myself have written over 400 papers. That despite the fact that for about 10 years I was out of action in terms of research. So one writes papers, which is well and good, but this is not what makes science and technology work. Now, one can talk about, look, how much of these papers are profound? Do they introduce a new concept? Are we leaders or followers? Are they profound or incremental? Are they disruptive or business as usual? Do we understand the problems that are India-centric? Just to give you an example, you see, if you look at Industry 4.0, if you look at cyber physical systems, or indeed the rise of AI universe, the whole lot of it has to do with the fact that there are no young people in many countries, in many societies. So only way these economies can grow is by having machines that serve the function of people. Now, India's problem, of course, is the inverse problem, is opposite problem, which means you don't lack people, and what you lack is the jobs for them. So there has to be a new way of thinking, which is not to say you reject technology. You cannot reject technology. There is no history of mankind in which a technology can be stopped. It would not happen. So point is, but you need to think about how you would leverage the same technology in order to create new opportunities which are not there now, to serve the unmet needs which can be served with new technologies. So this requires India-centric thinking. It's not simply about borrowing some technology from somewhere and just using it. Finally, of course, the major problem that remains with our research ecosystem is the basic education starting from high school. Why is that? Because nobody ever told me that I should be critical in my thinking. Nobody told me I should be independent in my thinking. If I was independent and critical, I would fail all exams, without doubt. Okay, so basically means that we are not prepared people for research. We have prepared them for exams, and we are very good at taking exams, I mean, those exams, the kind of exams that IIT kids take now, I mean, I'm sure many of you take now, I cannot crack it. I mean, I can't even get 10% in those exams. But it's not because I'm bad. I can solve problems, right? But those are special kind of artificial problems, and you solve 100 of them in 2 hours. Okay, this is all crazy totally. Okay, so basic problem is the lack of creativity, risk-taking, independence, and learning, and finally the cultural behavioral aspect. And I would focus much of my talk on that particular aspect, because upfront I would like to say that everybody's got IQ, everybody can compete, everybody can crack exams, and everybody had training, lot of good universities and courses. So why is it that we ask questions like this? So when I was secretary in Department of Science and Technology, often politicians and society as a whole would ask these questions. They would say, oh, why one is a follower rather than the leader? Why is one risk averse? If you have not taken risk, you cannot work in a new area and have a breakthrough or have a profound research, because a follower can only do incremental research. It's only the first word and the last laugh that counts. Okay, nothing else in between, everything is forgotten. So how to create the first word, craft the first word in anything, that's the thing. Why one is not connected to stakeholders? Why one is negative and complaining all the time? Anybody here negative and complaining? Some of the time, if not all the time. Okay, this is happening in lot of universities. I know so many universities, and these universities are going down, not Manipal, but a whole lot of other universities, especially government ones, because of petty politics and because of this negativity that we have built into our psyche. Okay, why there is little translation and innovation? Why? And then people say, why there is no Nobel Prize? And the most frequent answer that people give is that, is the lack of funding. This is not true. Okay, so let me put it very bluntly, that while funding is necessary, it is not sufficient to produce breakthroughs, to have profound research, to have quality research, and to be counted. And how do I know that this is the case? I mean, I'm a scientist, you are a scientist, so I should prove this, this assertion. Because if funding is the only thing that mattered, then how do you explain the fact that even in mathematical sciences, that there is no leader in the country? Why is it that we have not produced breakthrough in theoretical sciences which do not require the same kind of infrastructure that would, for example, be required by quantum technologies? So therefore, we must do introspect and say, where is the failure? So while certainly more funding is desirable, I have come to the conclusion that our fundamental failure is in the processes of doing science. It is not in the science that we do itself. And one part of that, one part of the process of doing science is the lack of diversity in science, and especially its leadership. Okay. So there we go. Now, okay, if you were to look what makes science and technology work. So without going through the rest of the presentation, I have wrote down here the factors which make science and technology work or not. The first one is what I call invention ecosystem, which is all the universities, all the R&D labs, everything that we know, that we live in. Basically, it's a black box in which money comes in and knowledge goes out. Okay, it's very strange reaction going on there, some nuclear reaction, which converts money into knowledge and its transmission. The innovation ecosystem is orthogonal mathematically to invention ecosystem, because it's just opposite. It's a black box in which knowledge comes in and money goes out. So you see that the processes of these two ecosystems are entirely different. So people who are successful in invention are not necessarily successful in innovation, and vice versa. In fact, most people don't even know what innovation means. And I'm not talking about most people like high school students. I'm talking about professors who have 20 years experience. You ask them what is innovation, they think it's some creative idea or some very big deal. It's not like that at all. It may not be creative at all. It is an idea which has socio-economic impact. Basically means, can I take knowledge and can I convert it into socio-economic impact? That is called innovation and nothing else. It may be a very simple idea, okay, but it's got the potential to create money, to have economic impact, to have social impact. So you see, invention and innovation ecosystems working together, having very strong interfaces together, is what makes science and technology successful. Which is why I started with saying, look, we shouldn't only be worshipping, chanting glories of Saraswati, but also of Lakshmi together as a symbolic gesture. Of course, policies are very important. Interfaces and connects between education, industry, society and government are very important. In fact, we saw that in COVID-19 time. So it's a very good example. When the virus hit, we did not even have protective gear. We had no N95 mask. We didn't have any, of course, there are no vaccines. There were no diagnostics. There was no ventilators. There was nothing, zilch, zero. And at that point, you could not import it from anywhere because everybody was using their own stuff. So what do? Now you ask yourself a question, were these very high technology items? Why is it that India didn't have them? They could have been done 10 years ago. They could have been done 20 years ago. But when the virus hit, they had to be done within 3 to 6 months or people are dying. So what made it possible is basically working together of what is called triple helix, which is the academia, industry and government. You may call it triple helix. You can put startups in there with a common purpose, with a shared vision and a common purpose and clearly defined problem. So these are the ingredients that basically we lack. And so whenever one can define clearly what is it one is looking for, where is the market for it, where is the user for it, and then you have the right kind of policies and industry and academia working together, it will happen. Cultural behavioral aspect is very important. We all heard of this Atmanirbharta. Now Atmanirbharta again is not dependent only on IQ, but it has cultural pillars. These cultural pillars, I call them Atma Vishwas, which is self-confidence. Whole lot of younger people I see, also less young people I see, okay, they got everything, I mean they can do anything, but they don't believe they can do it. Okay, so they're always waiting for somebody else to tell them how to do it. I have so many anecdotes, very funny stuff, but I don't have time to talk about it. But you know, there's some top manager of some top Indian company, then have the confidence to design something simple, which is being taught in the little courses in undergraduate education. He will go around looking for somebody's signature from abroad, okay, to certify that what he has actually made is correct, right? So this is the lack of confidence. Then you have Atma Samman, which is self-respect. People who have no self-respect cannot respect others. Okay, by the way, this is why we have all the negativity about people going about arguing and complaining and stuff like that. Okay, and then finally, I would say Atma Chintan. Atma Chintan, which is different from Chinta. Chinta is negative. Atma Chintan is a rational, evidence-based analysis of who we are, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there. So that's it. So these are the three cultural pillars of what makes an enterprise successful. Okay, let's look at the overarching challenge number 1, which is the rise of intelligent machines, and all the future is the convergence of different streams of knowledge which have not been connected before. So basically it's communication, distributed computing, materials, mechanics, machines, autonomous decision making, which means algorithms, and autonomous action, meaning actuators. Okay, so all of that are things coming together. So future is only about convergence. The convergence of cyber and physical has created Industry 4.0. So where do you think Industry NO is going to be? So Industry 4.0 is the digital cyber on one hand and physical on the other hand. And these two guys come together to work together. And you call it by many different names, Industry 4.0, IoT, robotics, there's smart materials, whatever, then matter. Okay, but this is the convergence of different streams of knowledge. So what is missing here, you think? There is one very essential ingredient which is missing, which would manifest in the future. First of all, this kind of stuff already renders our specialization, super specialization irrelevant. So it requires new learning all the time, and it requires connecting different domains of knowledge together. So what is missing in here? So if you look at industry N0, that basically would be completing the triangle of cyber, physical and biological. What is missing is biological, right? Yeah, you keep the phone away in your pocket, then you would integrate that with biological. See, now these guys are so amused, they are saying, what the hell is going on here? Anyway, so so biological right now is integrated in a passive way, which means it's in my hand and it'll go in my pocket, right? But I control what I do with it. But going in the future, the cyber and physical would be integrated with biological in your brain, in your body, not in your pocket. Okay, and there is absolutely no escaping this future. Okay, no matter how I think about it, it's not science fiction. So this actually poses a very, very important challenge, not just for science and technology, but the way we are going to structure our society and our lives. And so second overarching challenge is what you call sustainable development, and climate change is intimately related to it. So no matter what kind of science I do, basically one relates it to one of these verticals of sustainable development. And of course even diversity, inclusion, equity is related to sustainable development in very intimate way. When you think about it, sustainable development is an oxymoron. An oxymoron is a stuff which then, two parts of it are pulling in opposite directions. So our idea about development goes in one direction, which is through consumption, and our idea about sustainability pulls in another direction. And only thing we are saying is, look, we want more efficient technology in order to do sustainable development. But sustainable development, make no mistakes about it, is an oxymoron. And so earlier we understand the conflict between these two aspects, the faster we would address that, not only with our technology, not only with our science, but with everything that we got at our disposal as human beings. And I'll come to that in a moment. So look at this graph. If you look at the carbon emissions are always going up no matter what kind of new technologies are coming up. Okay, this is over carbon emissions going up. In fact, the slope is picking up. So now we may argue that for last 20 years, we are making greener technologies, we have better manufacturing, we have better cars, we have all of that. So why is that the carbon emissions are going up? Because a cleaner technology, more efficient technology only means that we have less emissions per GDP, which means per consumption. But GDP globally is going up all the time. Every society, no matter how much it consumes, believes they should consume more. Okay, so we need some what is called growth, right? So that growth, where would it come from? So now we may have a technology which is 5% more efficient, but my consumption has gone up 7%. So it's not going to compensate. And so this is what's happening so far. Okay, so here is the connection between what makes science and technology work or not. So these guys say, I used to think top problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse and climate change. I thought with 30 years of good science we could address those problems, but he was wrong. The top problems are selfishness, greed and apathy, and to deal with those we need a transformation, right? So all the future challenges that the humanity faces are of this nature, that they are not merely challenges of science and technology, but they must integrate in them the individual and the society and the nation and the globe. Unfortunately, at the level of beyond individual, there is very little synthesis and control that happens. So globalization, okay. So these challenges are not merely of science and technology, but have a strong socio-cultural, psychological dimensions. Anybody disagrees with that? You don't want to argue? Now is the time to argue. can write an essay on that as to why that is true or not true, okay. So now, okay, the processes of science and technology, the new mind that I call it. So it requires diversity of perspectives and solutions, and which is why diversity is so important. Integrating all stakeholders of science, which is society at large, whether it is women, whether it is younger people, whether it is people coming from this region, that region, coming with different socio-economic backgrounds, all of that is the solution to the problem. They are often thought as problem, but actually it is a solution to the problem, because it's not only about energy transition, it's also about energy justice. Because if you would never have energy transition to renewables unless you would also have energy justice. Now what's the joke? There's a new joke now? Oh, never mind. So he's saying, oh, what the hell is justice going on here? I came to hear is what the hell is going on, right? So energy, the transition, which means society going to renewables, will not happen if the renewables do not reach the last person. Obviously, unless everybody's got renewables, you would not have transition in energy, and which is why the carbon emissions will keep going up, happens. So integration is important, synthesis and not only analysis. We are very good at analysis when we do courses. Why? Because all your coursework is from chapter to chapter, from exam to exam, from course to course, from degree to degree, and maybe not. Okay, but if you have to solve one problem based on the synthesis of all of these, then people would fail. All my exams since 1990 I started teaching were open book. And now they are open internet, or they can be open chat GPT. 70% people fail the exam. Okay, the reason is they have no common sense, they have no synthesis. So all that they know is, hey, how to do this? I mean, this chapter has this kind of problems, right? So they only that chapter, but the chapter in life is not related to chapter in the textbook. So therefore, all the problems that we would have are multi-dimensional problems. They would require synthesis not only of thermodynamics, or fluid mechanics, or materials, or AI, all of that together with the societal concerns and what would make it successful for that. So interdisciplinary and all that is important. Okay, let me give some example of what I mean by creativity. So we keep saying there should be more creativity in our research and our education and so on. What is creativity? Creativity is not creating money. Of course, it can also be creating money. But creativity basically means connecting those domains of knowledge which are not connected before in a useful way. So that is how you get biophysics, because you connected biology and physics. So you get an interdisciplinary new area, and so it is connecting those dots of knowledge not connected before. Here's an example. It requires a radical change in the perspective. So this is a story of AFM, atomic force microscopy, a tool without, or scanning tunneling microscopy, a tool without which nanotechnology would not have been possible. So what is it? What we want to do with this tool is to see small things, nanometer scale things. And when you think about, I want to see something, you always think about light, because it's a common experience. You want to see something light. If you are a little more scientific, you think about radiation or different wavelength. For example, electron microscopy. So you can see smaller things because wavelength of electron is smaller. But if you think about how do blind people see, then it's a different mode of seeing, which means you take a stick and then you walk around and poke the surface with the stick, and that pressure map or resistance map is converted into a visual map. If you do the same thing on a small scale, you take a small stick, which is called micro cantilever, like that there. So you have that small stick, you go about poking the surface with that stick, drag it on the surface, keeping the same force. So basically you see how you have to, the stick has to go up and down, and then you would create a visual map of the surface. So essentially what you're saying is, look, the concept is important. Okay, so if we think about the concept of seeing, seeing is not one thing. Seeing is 10,000 different things. And if you convert that idea of seeing into technology, into a product, then you have a new invention, which is very successful. There were times, you know, when somebody was, one leg in grave, that's when you get Nobel Prize, but that's not true anymore. So for example, the story of STM, the scanning tunneling microscopy, it would get Nobel Prize very quickly, and more Nobel Prizes, even in science, are being driven by technology. So earlier it used to be that science was driving technology, but a whole lot of now technology is driving basic science, and in fact AI is an example. So, as an editor, I used to get more and more papers that are doing science using AI, whether it is materials design, whole lot of stuff. So more and more science would be done using technology, and that would change very fundamentally how we think of scientists and doing science and research and publishing and so on. By the way, when you talk about the future of publishing, scientific publishing, I have talked to many top CEOs of all the scientific publishers. What is the future of scientific publishing? Basically, machines will do much of the research, machine will write papers, machine will swap those papers with like-minded machines. They would make summary of what their stupid human has to know about this little research, and so there's the end of it. Okay, so that future is not very far. It's coming at us at very, very fast rate. So this is it. Here's an example from my own experience about doing some creative research, absurd ideas, but they can be converted into a process or a technology or a product. So I was working in this area called nanofabrication, which means to make small things, to fabricate small things. Now there are two ways of doing it. Those who work in nanotechnology, you know that there is a top-down method. Top-down method uses some machine tool, laser, radiation or something in order to make something small. There is another method which is called bottom-up, not to be confused with bottoms-up. Bottoms-up is entirely different. Okay, some interesting liquid substance you put in a glass and then gulp it down, they are called bottoms-up. But bottom-up is another method which is self-assembly, how things happen in nature, which means little things come together to make something bigger, and this is a method to this madness, and that's called self-assembly or bottom-up. So now I was thinking, hey, there may be another method which is inspired by this popular movie of the 80s I saw. It's called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Okay, which basically means you make something a little bit bigger and then shrink it. Alright, so it looks like an absurd idea, but you see today everything is limited by power of ideas. It's not limited by technology. So if you have an idea, it can be converted into a product or technology today, because given all the stuff that we have at our disposal, problem is we are not getting new ideas. So new ideas, even absurd ideas that connect different things, are the most important aspect. So anyway, we can do it because you see, make something big like 100 micron with micro machining, which is easy to do. It could be a complex three-dimensional object, then do molding with a gel, then dry the gel would shrink, repeat the process 4 times, then you would have shrunk the object by 1 order of magnitude. So therefore, this is a very easy example of making complex three-dimensional objects. It can be done in a high school lab without $1 billion worth of nanotechnology lab. And interestingly, this could be published in the top journal of material science called Advanced Materials in 3 weeks. I mean, the whole work was completed in 3 weeks from idea to execution, right? What I am trying to emphasize is that again, power of idea matters, is not what you have in your lab. Lot of people have lot of things in their labs, okay, but a whole lot of those labs are not generating new ideas, and this is where we need to focus on. Instead of saying I got 3 PhD students working on this problem for 3 years, okay, and then of course they can publish, there's not a big deal, that's business as usual. I'll give you an example. So we always think about, hey, as an inspiration coming from different areas, different domains. So we made, for example, by self-assembly, an array of micro lenses and nano lenses, an example of which is shown over there in blue. This is by self-assembly of polymer that you would make an array of lenses or what you call, okay, can make mirrors also by an array of them. So I say, look, what is it that you can do with it? What I can do with it is I can play this clip. If it plays, then it would explain to you what you can do with it. There you are. Hey, what about the sound? Can somebody turn on the sound for this? The sound is equally good. Anyhow, you can already see what you can do with an array of lenses or mirrors. Basically, if you have a complex three-dimensional object, you make miniaturized copies of it. In this case, Madhubala, you make miniaturized copies of it, many of them. You can transfer it on a photosensitive material, and so they call photolithography. So you can use this array of lenses, micro lenses, for doing whole lot of stuff, and this is one example of that. And you see, this is what this guy is doing. You see, he's looking at this array of mirrors over here. He's not very happy. But anyway, at the end of it, I was rather happy. Okay, I say, hey, this gives me a new idea about what I want to do, right? Anyway, you know this song, and somebody doesn't know this song? From Mughal Azam? Everybody knows, right? If you don't know, just play this clip. It's a very nice song, and then you would realize that this is pretty good. Okay, right. Okay, let's come to another process of doing science, or indeed using science. Now, I talked about the fact that there is an invention ecosystem which converts money into knowledge, and the innovation ecosystem that is reversed, which converts knowledge into money. There are three ways of doing that. So every problem can be solved by three different modes of thinking, and these three different modes of thinking in Hindi, I call them Jugaad, Dhanda and Panga. Okay, so in fact the problem of diversity and climate change, for example, will not be solved by neither by Jugaad nor by Dhanda. It requires Panga. So what do we mean by that? So Jugaad is solving the problem by hook or by crook, but not an optimal solution, and not a scalable solution, and not a globally acceptable solution. So we need to get away from Jugaad, okay, unless it is very, very necessary to do it. It is a question of life and death. Then there is a business as usual, which is always incremental, which is called Dhanda, which means, oh, I will take care 2% increase, 5% increase, something like that, right? Now the problems that we are facing, the exponential problems of future, they cannot be addressed by Dhanda. Otherwise, we see that carbon emissions are not going down, but Dhanda, this is called business as usual. And similarly, you see, if you look at problem of inclusion, equity, diversity, if we are solving it at a very slow pace, 2%, 5% is not acceptable anymore, which basically means that we need disruptive, out-of-box solutions and thinking to be able to do that. I should also introduce the concept of what is called knowledge pyramid. So I talked about the fact that there is invention and innovation ecosystems. The knowledge pyramid, at the base of it are resources or money. For example, well, somebody has to provide, maybe industry, maybe foundation, maybe government, maybe somebody. You start from there, that you go to measurements and data, which is the lowest layers of knowledge. From there you extract information, from information extract knowledge, and hope is that from knowledge you can distill what is called wisdom, which is the top layer which has gone missing, mostly. Okay. So now, of course, in there somewhere is also called common sense. Common sense is not common at all. Okay, these are two things which have gone nearly missing from the knowledge pyramid. And so their journey going from money to knowledge, information, knowledge and wisdom is called invention ecosystem. When you start the reverse journey, coming from top, then you have the control over stuff. So you say use knowledge, use information, use data measurements to get money out. Money is a symbol. Money in itself has no meaning. Money is a symbol of making socio-economic impact, which is good, okay, which leads to real growth, either of mental peace, How many PhD students? Are there any PhD students here? Quite a bit. And you're all depressed, right? You don't have to raise your hand, okay? I mean, it's possible that you are a little bit upset sometimes and paper is not getting published and some results are not coming, an advisor is saying fabricate data. No, I'm not saying every advisor is saying that, but it can happen. Okay, so there is a problem, and so there is always, this little stress which is going on. By the way, which is another topic, I love to interact on that. I give that course in many places. Is saying, look, what is the problem with PhD? Okay, and what are the problems and issues, and how to actually address them? That happens. Okay, so diversity. We come back to that again. How do we get insight, foresight, confidence, risk taking, and all this stuff there? So let me first say, when a distinguished but elderly scientist states something is possible, she is almost certainly right because of experience. When she states that something is impossible, she is very probably wrong. Okay, so this is the first principle of doing science, not just science but anything. Okay, and why I can prove it. Kodak, I'm so sorry, I should not written the name here. Okay, somebody may sue me on this, right? But I am saying there was a great company which was a leader in photography. When my generation was growing up, all the photographs were processed through one company, and within 1 decade it went from being hero to zero. Okay, because they were also leaders in digital photography. By the way, my first job after PhD was from this company. I wanted to be a lowly teacher, so I refused that. But anyway, why did they go wrong? Even though they were pioneers of digital photography, their top leadership said there is no future for digital photography. It's not because they were stupid. It's not because they didn't have the experience. I will come to it in a moment. At the same time, there was another company which were leaders in personal computers. Not the mainframe, of course, they were the leaders, but also they were the leaders in personal computers at that time. But the top leadership of that company said there is no future for personal computers and personal computing. Okay, that company also is a pale shadow of his former self. Right? Why do you think that these two people, opined in a particular way, which was completely wrong? Is because they did not connect the dots. Now, what do I mean by that? While they were very good experts in their own domain, they did not see the rise of other technologies which are proximal to them, which basically make or break them. So what do I mean by that? See, look, if you have no digital applications like digital photography, then people will have no reason to have personal computers. On the other hand, personal computers are not needed unless you have digital applications to run on them. So therefore, both of these things, they co-arise, which means that they are dependent on each other, and so therefore not seeing actually what is happening in my proximity of what I do can be a deadly error. And this is a very good example. Nokia refused Android, Yahoo rejected Google. Okay, why? Because they didn't have the foresight. They had very good insight into what they do, but not understanding the winds of change. And we are again at that juncture. Society and planet as a whole is at that juncture where we do not understand the future, so we cannot prepare for it. Oh, this is a different slide, but anyway, this is not related to what I'm talking about. But anyway, this is an analysis of why startups don't succeed. So that I did a lot of research on it, talking to a few thousand people, and then looking at actually how they fail. Because in science, the first lesson is don't focus on what succeeds. Focus on the weakness and what makes it fail. If you have proved something 10 times, no point proving it 11 times. Work on something to prove it wrong. So that's the first lesson. Anyway, a whole lot of this stuff, which is true not only for startups, is true for all of us. There are people called energy vampires. So I am saying get rid of them. Stay away from them. So they suck not only your blood, but all your life force and the optimism and positivity. So at the end of the day, people are saying, can I really do it? I think the whole world is so bad, is all wrong, God up there is not taking care of things, everything like that, right? So this is what happens. Also, another thing is reluctance to work with unlike people. So one cannot make new things possible unless one is very interdisciplinary. But we are all very comfortable with people who are like us. But if we are comfortable, we are talking only to people like us, we'll not learn anything new. By training, I am a chemical engineer, but I have attended very few chemical engineering conferences. The reason is that I already know what they are talking about. So I'd rather attend a conference in philosophy than to attend a chemical engineering conference. Now, this is not a prescription for you, okay, that you decide what you want to do. But I'm saying one must also talk to people who are not like us, even though it's not very comfortable talking to them, because it requires a little psychological empathy, it requires a little bit of shift to understand what the other person is saying. And by the way, everybody believes they are the center of the universe. So I've talked to some chemists, they say chemistry is the mother of all sciences. Then I ask them who is the father. Then they say, I don't know. Okay, but everybody thinks they're the center of universe, little realizing that the universe has multi-centers. Okay, so everybody is at the center only. And finally, letting go to grow. I have seen most people come to a critical size, but they cannot abandon control. So in order to grow beyond a critical size, you have to delegate power, you have to trust people, you have to get the right kind of team, beyond without which you cannot grow beyond a certain size. Now let's look at overarching challenge, another one, the inclusion, diversity, equity. Gender and age are the most important aspects of diversity which are gone missing. I'll give you an example of Indian National Science Academy. The average age of the fellows when they are elected to fellowship is 59. And most people in India are thinking about retiring at 60. Okay, so basically it becomes a club of retired people. Okay, that's what it is. And in terms of women, 7% women are fellows of the academy. So you have no age diversity and you have no gender diversity. And this is true of many, many other systems. I was a little bit fortunate or unfortunate when I became fellow of Indian National Science Academy. I was 42 years old. So by the standards of academy, very young, I mean not to be taken seriously. In fact, one guy told me when I was in a committee to elect new fellows, he said, we don't take people below 50 seriously, right? So this is so true of the systems that we have. What we need is a balance in all our committees and everything. That balance is the balance between energy and experience, 2 E's. So that comes with age or not, but in any case you need experience and you need energy, and both of them working together to be able to do that. So we all know that there are issues which are related to diversity, in particular about gender. So sometimes input to the pipeline is not there. For example, there used to be like 3% women in IITs until they created new supernumerary positions. Now there are about 20%. So that there are not enough input in certain areas like mathematics, theoretical sciences, mechanical engineering, and so on. The input itself is very deficient. At the same time, there is a leaky pipeline and there is glass ceiling finally. So between starting out and in between, a lot of things happen because of which there is attrition. The other problem is the professional and personal satisfaction, together with the fact that there is so-called life-work balance, which becomes much harder for women. And so therefore, if you expect the same work-life balance from women as you would from men, then that there is some faulty understanding of how we are going to solve this problem. So respect, recognition, and efficiency. In growing up, there are stereotypes and biases because everybody is told, no, you do biology, don't do mechanical engineering and stuff like that, don't do mathematics. So all of that is there. LKK I talked about in the morning. They say, log kya kahenge? So there is always a lot of peer pressure about conformity and saying do things in a particular way. And then this stuff about Dr. Mrs. and Madame Sir syndromes, representation in decision-making bodies, and all of that is a problem. There are a lack of role models and mentorship and leadership. All of these problems are addressable, by the way. It all requires a little bit of understanding and willingness to be able to do it at the level of individual, but also at the level of university and every organization. So I would think that people pay focus on these aspects, and they have easy solutions to be able to do them. Of course, harassment, bullying, access to resources, funding, safety and security can become a problem. Balancing traditional and modern expectations, starting from family to society. Career advancement, mental and physical health, all of these are very, very important aspects that prevent our realizing the full potential of equity and inclusion. So, there have been some policies and programs, and some of them that I have been involved in by realizing what the problem is, so you can figure out what the solution would be. So there is a program called Gati. So all the institutions that join that program, they can be their contributions to equity and inclusion for gender can be assessed, and they can be ranked. Vigyan Jyoti is a program that starts for high school girls. So it addresses economic, cultural aspects of their further higher education. Women, I told you that we created a vertical in Indian National Science Academy for women associates. Rest of it, okay, you already know stuff there. Okay, I want to conclude this quickly by providing another example, or rather an example of what makes science and technology work. We said policy is very important. So we may have all the science, we may have all the scientists, but they will not be successful, they will not come to market, they will not build economy unless you had the right rules, regulations and policies. And I want to give you a very simple example that without you knowing anything about policies or rules, regulations can understand. So one day, about 5 years ago, I woke up. Actually, I wake up every day, but that day also I woke up, and waking up, I am always thinking of something new to do that day. So I realized suddenly, it hit me that the maps that we use, digital maps that we use, are not made in India maps. Okay, they are not made by an Indian company. They are made in India, by the way. So people who make that software, they are Indians sitting in Bangalore. The data that they are, all these maps are based on this geospatial data. That data is Indian. The people who have made the maps are Indian, but the monetization of that data is not by Indian company. So now you realize, you say, why? Is it because I lack the science to make maps, or is it because of what? Then so you dig it a little bit deeper, then I realized that there is a policy from the days of British in India which said that, look, because of security reasons, this sector of geospatial data is highly regulated. Which basically said that nobody can do surveying and mapping without very tedious prior approvals from the government. Even the government department like Survey of India take 8 months to get those approvals. So you can forget about any private company getting those approvals. So it just said that, look, you cannot. So the satellites up there, they don't care about your rules and regulations. So they can make maps and sell it back to you, isn't it? For all services, for all infrastructure, for everything. And why? Because it's not because we don't have drones, it's not because we don't have LiDAR, it's not because we don't have software for making maps or human resources, it's simply because policy would not allow it. So, because this policy was under the Department of Science and Technology, because Survey of India being a subordinate department of DST, they said, look, we have to change this policy. Now, any thinking person would think that we need to change this policy, it should be easy. But it's not easy at all, right? Because now people would cite security concern and so on, and then you would have to argue with them to say, look, technology has changed everything. Okay, whatever it is that you are trying to hide from your law-abiding citizens is available to your enemy at a cost. Okay, so basically everything, every inch of this planet is known and has been mapped. So therefore, you cannot really hide anything for security. So therefore, what is it you do? you have to liberalize and deregulate this sector. And so the new policy basically is very simple. Okay, I mean, it's complicated, policies are complicated, but I can summarize it in one sentence. One sentence is that nobody needs, no Indian entity, public or private, needs prior approval for surveying and mapping unless that area is considered out of bounds by a competent authority. Now it looks like a long sentence, but very simple, right? So you don't need any approval for surveying and mapping by any Indian entity, public or private, except in those areas which are, you say this is a defense area, okay, let us say, right? So it's as simple as that. Now, what do you think is the economic impact of that little policy? Okay, some people think it's hundreds of crores, something is thousands of crores, something is tens of thousands of crores, something is lakhs of crores. It's actually tens of lakhs of crores. How do you figure, this simple stupid thing can be worth tens of lakhs of crores? And what is it that we were missing all along, even though we had the science and technology to do it? See, major problem in India is that most rural folks and small town folks, they don't have ownership certificate for their land. Right, so there's litigation going on from High Court to Supreme Court. 50% cases and blood feuds are because of the fact that people don't have ownership certificate for their land. So now with this policy, the new policy, entire India is being mapped digitally with an accuracy of 5 centimeters. And so that people who don't have these ownership certificates are being given, and this is called Swamitva. So basically all this stuff, non-performing economic resources which are locked up like land, like gold for example, so they come out in your economy. You can now go to bank and take loan against it as a collateral. So essentially that resource which was not working for you, it comes into play, and it comes into play because of policy, not because you didn't have the science and technology to do it. So a very simple, easy example to understand how policies play a compelling role. Now for the future, I'll conclude with the next 2 slides about the future. And so people often ask, especially younger people, they say, hey, what about the future? What kind of technology? Kisme scope zyada hai? Are all the parents who ever come to take admission into IIT, no, only thing they ask me is, Doctor Saab, kisme scope zyada hai? I feel like kicking them out of my office, but I don't do it. I mean, because respect, I don't know, respect is a strong word. But anyway, so I try to explain to them, I said, you're not looking for a scope because your kid only needs one job. The scope is for policymakers. Okay, how many jobs? 1 lakh job in this sector, 10 lakh job in that sector, whatever, right? What you need is, your guy, he is good at this kind of thing, he has interest in this kind of stuff. So all he has to do is, do well in that particular area and then get a great job. He'll do great progress even if he is a clown, okay, in a circus. Okay, so that's the only job that he needs, and not everybody need computer science. Okay. By the way, computer science is going to lose sheen because things are changing very fast. But that's another lesson that we can talk about later. So anyway, what the contours of the future, we don't know what products will come, but we know the direction and the drivers of future. These are to be healthy, to be connected, to learn, to make decisions in complexity. AI is in response to that. To be entertained, to create and control its own world. AR, VR is in response to that. To live long, maybe forever, digital twin and everything, avatars which are coming up in that, or to be connected and so on, social media, the rise of that. So anyway, whatever technology or product that satisfies one of the deep desires of mind, basically is going to be a successful product or technology. The only mistake, a misunderstanding of the current civilization that we live in is to equate happiness with consumption. And nothing would be more wrong than this, because you can ask anybody. I have often seen people, most of my friends are very rich. Okay, I'm the only poor guy there. So, I've seen these guys, they say, I am today feeling not very happy, little depressed. I have 5 cars. What about I go get another car? That would make my life happy, right? So, of course, it makes their life happy for exactly 2 days. right? After that, he is back to this depression, where depression coming from the chemicals being produced in his brain, which have nothing to do with his car. Okay, so now the major problem is equating happiness with consumption, and this is where the role of technology comes in, because we think that technology is going to fix our problems, but it would not. And so, which is understood by looking at what is called Maslow's motivational model, okay, from psychology, which I did this psychology 101 in 1978, but I remember this. So these are two different kind of needs that people have. They are called deficiency needs at the bottom. We have the physiological needs, that of safety, roti, kapda, makan. All of those needs can be satisfied with technology and products. But then you know already that, okay, if you had sufficient number of zeros in your bank account, then there are other needs. For example, need for recognition, aesthetics, cognitive needs, transcendence, whatever it is called, right? Okay. Point is that none of those needs can be satisfied with technology or by further consumption. In fact, these needs, which are called growth needs, can be inversely correlated with the consumption and technology. So by clearly understanding what problems can be solved by science and technology and those which cannot be solved by science and technology, one can bring a balance and a harmony in both an individual, me, you, and the university and any societal system. The nation and planet would require this in order for planet to save itself in the next 200 years. Now, I mean, people talk about 2 degrees Celsius rise by the end of the century. There is nothing more crazier than that, because the earth is not here for end of the century. I mean, you have to plan for 5,000 years, isn't it? Nobody can even think that long, okay, because you are thinking, hey, if I can limit the temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius, then I have kind of done great, okay. But what's going to happen after 2 centuries? Okay, there is not going to think. So, okay, let's conclude this, that what we require to do good science and to do all of that, first of all, is common sense, which right now machines don't have. We need lateral thinking and connecting the dots, called creativity, being interdisciplinary, which is problem solving, not just tool based approach, but solving a problem, carrying the tools and concepts across silos and synthesis, innovation and startups, and that's it. This is what I do when I'm sitting there listening to somebody else. So I make sketches, okay, and some of them even sell. You want to buy them? Contact me later. Okay. So let me stop there. And so kind of a very tight summary is, look, we haven't talked about specialized science. What I'm focusing on is the process of doing science and what makes science and technology work, both at the level of individual, at the level of a institution, at the level of a nation and society as a whole, and future our challenges would be global, which is why it is so important that we have diversity and we have inclusion and equity. Thank you very much. Let's stop there. I'm happy to discuss anything.
Any questions? Quick questions, because we are into the lunchtime.
Question may be quick. I can't guarantee that for answer.
Answer will be quick. So sir will be here with us till evening. However,
The
he has
first
to
person
go.
who asks question will get a chocolate. I carry one in my pocket. First one is the harder, yeah.
So as a researcher, how do you define overwork?
Define?
Overwork. Because I
Overwork?
saw in one of your slides, overworking is also not necessary, as you say, but
There is no such thing as overwork.
so what is overwork then? How
There
do
is no
we...
such thing as overwork. I don't define it at all. They know sometimes people say, hey, today is Diwali, are you working? But it has not occurred to me it's Diwali. See,
So
all
working on
this
Diwali-
stuff I'll tell you. There are a lot of people, especially younger people who work in corporate sector, they have this very strange question about work-life balance, right? So this is so stupid as to I cannot tell you how stupid it is. Why is it stupid? It's stupid because there is no such thing as work-life balance, because life comes first and work is a part of it. So there is a set and a subset. They are not competing. There is no competition between work and life. If you have to choose between the two of them, you will always choose life.
Yes.
Okay. So now the question comes, sometimes you say, look, I need to work for my life. Okay. And this problem comes, there is a very strange problem of the industrial age where people say, look, you have something, I take your life, I carve 8 hours from there and I call it work. And I pay you for that. So you don't own those 8 hours. This is mine because I paid you for it. Right? So this is called work. Isn't it?
Yes.
So the whole thing is totally flawed. But you're asking me the question about how I define overwork. So my answer is there is no such thing as overwork. Work to me is life, so it is driven by passion. It's not driven by somebody's money. I would rather refuse somebody's money if I have to see no passion in it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So.
So I think so. We will have discussions later also. I
Why
request.
later only?
So because we want you to be here with us today. So.
One half more question.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah, who's got? Yeah, you got a half a question. Yeah, tell me.
Sir, I want to know a basic difference between information and knowledge, because I use these terms similar.
Very good question. What do you think is the difference? I mean, you must have some idea about that. Since you're asking the question, you must have thought about it.
Sir, according to me, both of them are collection of data.
Oh.
Yes.
So it's now even down to data. So what is the difference between data and information? So if everything is a collection of data, then there is no information, and certainly no knowledge. So okay, what do you think? F equal to MA is data or information or knowledge?
Sorry, sir?
Huh? So knowledge is that matrix in which you can interpret information. So let me explain it with concrete example. So F equal to MA is knowledge because you can explain information about planetary motion. Now if you observe planetary motion over a long period of time, that's all data. Okay, but you don't understand what that data means. Then there is a information which is in that data. That information may be, hey, are these planets, okay, what kind of gravitational pull will they exert according to these, planetary motion and stuff, right? But what explains that motion is the knowledge, which is F equal to MA. Okay, so knowledge is that matrix in which you can interpret information, which you can make sense out of that information. He is saying the hows and whys of it. Okay, but even that is not enough. Okay, if you want to prevent destruction of planet and humanity on this planet, you cannot even stop with knowledge. You need wisdom. Okay, so wisdom is basically how am I going to use that knowledge? Okay, so that's wisdom.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I guess now it's time for lunch.
Yeah, lunch, yes. Okay, thank you so much, sir, and we all enjoyed this talk. I request Professor Kuldeep Singh Sangwan to please felicitate Professor Sharma with a small token of appreciation.
I don't know, people keep saying a small token of appreciation. I was hoping for a big token of appreciation.
It is a big token of appreciation. So, Professor Angela will have your session after lunch because we are a little running late with time. So we will break for lunch now, and we'll come back and assemble for Professor Angela's talk at 2. And 1 to 2 we'll be having lunch, and 2 will be back. So please enjoy your lunch and see you again.